vast clumps of cholla cactus, through the loose dirt of a service road, winding. On the other side of the road and 50 feet behind the rancher's house was a tank with a small leak forming a puddle from which the diamondback could suck its water. Nearly across the road and sensing ground vibrations, the snake paused, came to alertness, eyes expressionless and always the same, black, fixed, unblinking. And the tongue flicking rapidly, conveying air particles to the Jacobson's organ in the roof of the mouth, and thenceforth into the brain. Smell. Its head came up, followed by part of the body, and not quite into a full striking coil, holding there. But the vibrations receded, and after 2 minutes it slackened and continued on toward water, eventually crawling over boot prints put down only moments before. So the high desert night began to play itself like an old Victrola song. In the shadow of Guapa Mountain, a diamondback took water. A nightbird called. A coyote howled, answered or joined seconds later, it was hard to tell which, by other coyotes. From the west, hard breathing and the nearly inaudible crunch of gravel beneath sandals as Pablo Espinosa picked his way along the bed of Slater's Draw. Coming off the ridge, he had noticed lights in the main ranch house far down to his right. He had seen them before on his other runs north and was not troubled, since he had been assured the old man who lived there was oblivious to what transpired in darkness. A quarter-mile northwest of the main house was another building, smaller and built of adobe and surrounded by scrub cedar, making it difficult to see from any distance how many lamps were lighted in the western windows. Pablo Espinosa would continue along the arroyo until he reached the big rock he had used before and would stand upon it and look over the edge of the draw, counting the window lamps. Please, his prayer went up to the Blessed Virgin. Let there be 2, and only those. He could then relieve himself of the pack and drink good water, resting for a few hours before traveling south again to his home and family in Santa Elena. With luck, he would be picked up by La Migra and given a ride to the crossing point near Castellon and would be home tomorrow evening. They would question him, of course, but he would say only that he had come to El Norte looking for work, and nothing could be proven otherwise. A sweet ride home on the American taxpayers' dollars, though Pablo Espinosa never thought of it quite that way. To him, the gringos' tolerant laws and innocent generosity simply made things easier. Once more, a nightbird. Once more, the coyotes. And almost finished with its drink, the diamondback again sensed movement, bringing its head out of the puddle and remaining still for 5 seconds before executing a slow backward crawl toward whatever cover it might find. Something had come to the other side of the water tank and was making sounds. Without a physiological apparatus of the kind normally associated with hearing, the snake perceived only some of those sounds, the ones causing even the faintest of vibrations in the substratum, such as human footsteps. In that way, Crotalus atrox could never be precisely sure of what surrounded it, could only react in a primitive fashion to the slice of reality bearing itself to its receptors. For the diamondback, and as with most things counted among the living, existence, when it was shorn of all that did not matter, came down to food and danger and propagation of the species. And the sounds were first the soft impact of old boots on the desert floor. Then, beyond the snake's ability to hear, fingers swishing away debris from the tank's surface on which the moon rippled as the water moved, and the slurping of a man drinking from cupped hands. The Indian finished his drink and slowly wiped the sleeve of a worn denim shirt across his mouth, glancing toward the kitchen windows of the ranch house 50 feet away. Lights from the kitchen spilled only a short way into the darkness, and through honeysuckle vines partially covering the window, the Indian could see an old man sitting at a table, handling cards. At that moment, the Indian, long in the desert and attentive to the slightest shift in its cadence and feel, came aware of a presence close by, and paused with the sleeve of his shirt partly across his mouth. He moved his eyes, nothing more, looking toward the other side of the tank, holding that position for nearly a minute. Then he smiled and placed his right forearm across his chest, palm of the hand downward, and moved it away from him with a slight waving motion in the old and understood language that had been the true sign of his ancestors 150 years before, when the people roamed the Comancheria and did as they chose. Long ago, when the people lived in freedom and with honor, and the Comanche name was synonymous with fear and no quarter given or received. He eased away from the tank, parted the branches of a desert willow, and followed an oblique course away from the snake and toward Diablo Canyon 6 miles farther south. Looking up, he barely caught the moon-backed profile of someone descending a mountain ridge toward the jagged earth slash called Slater's Draw. Hesitating, the Indian wondered if he should circle back to the small adobe where light still burned. When he had left, the woman called Sonia was combing her black hair while she hummed and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, her mouth tasting only a little acrid, and her head only spinning slightly from the sotol she and the Indian had drunk. The mirror was cheap and caused a distortion. She supposed the rancher might buy her a new one if she asked, yet the bias was in the direction of making things narrower in whatever the mirror reflected, allowing the woman to feel younger than her age of 54 and slimmer than she truly was. And for that reason she said nothing and kept the mirror. The Indian knew things were what they were, and remained as such no matter how hard you might cry up for something different. In an unforgiving world, one trifled only with which one had to trifle by way of eating and drinking and getting along. And what the woman did when he was not with her was nothing of his own. So thinking that, and carrying a plastic sack with food she had given him, he moved on through the night toward his wood and canvas shelter in Diablo Canyon, stopping twice to look up at the moon and thank it for taking him home. Whether the diamondback understood the moon or looked at it with gratitude is difficult to say. Maybe, maybe not. But the snake did seem to glance up now and then as it crawled toward what its acute sense of smell indicated might be a rabbit's nest with enough food to carry it for another few weeks. And it caused the stalks of yellow primrose to momentarily bend as it passed through them. 2 lights burned in windows a little east of Slater's Draw, soft thump of a pack coming out of the draw and onto the ground above, lying there and containing what was worth slightly more than $45,000 on the streets of America. Pablo Espinosa followed the pack, taking hold of a tree root with one hand and clawing earth with the other, pulling himself up and out. He brushed arroyo dust off his clothes and caught his breath, looking around. Nothing. Quiet across the high desert, except for the shrill and distant scream of a mother rabbit too far away for Pablo Espinosa to hear. Sitting in the kitchen of the main ranch house, Winchell Dear heard the scream. He'd heard it before, and was neither surprised nor alarmed. Nature ran things with an iron fist in the desert. Cries in the night, step over bones a month or 2 later. Death in the short grass. Beneath the table, a dog older than Winchell Dear in equivalent dog years raised her head, sniffed, growled. The dog had come with the ranch, and there was a time when she would have been up and pushing open the screen door, on her way to investigate whatever was happening within the perimeter she defined as her place of duty and concern. But now, arthritic and tired from 14 years of watchfulness, she merely laid her head on her paws and went back to sleep. Winchell Dear said, "It's all right, girl. Let it go. Something got a rabbit, that's all." He straightened his shoulders, shuffled cards, and glanced out at the night, where vectors were closing toward him. He might have known that, or had a feeling about it, for old gamblers who have lived long and by their wits have a way of catching the smell of evil when it is still some distance off. Perhaps that was why he reached up and touched the little .380 Colt automatic slung in a holster under his left arm.